Stepdad brought his mistress to live in my late mom's home, then I found out about their scheme to steal everything. They tried to frame me for assault, but hidden cameras turned the tables. I, 26M, need to get it all out. My mom passed away 3 months ago after battling cancer. She left her apartment to me in her will, but my stepdad Derek, 45M, also lives here. Let me give you the full background because it's important to understand how we got here. I lost my biological dad when I was 8 to a car accident. It was just mom and me after that, and we became incredibly close. She worked as a high school teacher during the day and picked up evening shifts at a local coffee shop to make ends meet. Despite working 2 jobs, she never missed my school events or sports games. She'd often say I was her reason for staying strong. My mom met Derek at the coffee shop where she worked part-time. He was a regular customer who worked as a real estate agent. He'd always come in during her shifts and eventually asked her out. I was 16 then and not very happy about it. Mom hadn't dated anyone since Dad died, and I was worried about change. But she seemed so happy with Derek that I tried to be supportive. Things moved really fast between them. Within 6 months, Derek had practically moved in with us, and they got married just before my 17th birthday. Mom was hoping we'd become this perfect blended family, but Derek never really tried to bond with me. He wasn't openly hostile, just indifferent. He'd ignore me during family dinners, never showed up to my high school graduation, and always managed to be busy when Mom suggested we do things together. I moved out for college but came back often to visit Mom. Over the years, I noticed how Derek's behavior toward her changed. He'd miss important occasions, claiming work emergencies. Mom would make excuses for him, saying real estate was a demanding job. But I saw how hurt she was every time he wasn't there. Last year, Mom started feeling unusually tired and had frequent stomach pains. She ignored it initially, thinking it was just stress from work. By the time she finally saw a doctor, the cancer had spread throughout her body. The doctors gave her 6 months at most. I immediately took a leave from my job as a software developer to care for her. My company was understanding and let me work remotely when I could. During Mom's illness, Derek was barely around. He'd show up for doctor's appointments occasionally, but most days he'd be working late or meeting clients. Mom needed help with everything, bathing, eating, taking medications, and I was the one there for her. Derek would sometimes throw money at us for medical bills and act like that was enough. A week before she passed, Mom asked to speak with her lawyer alone. I later found out she'd changed her will to leave the apartment to me instead of Derek. When she told me about it, she made me promise to let Derek stay as long as he needed since he'd been living there for 10 years. She said she trusted me to do the right thing, but she wanted to ensure I had a stable future. The apartment is in a prime location in the city and worth quite a bit. The first month after Mom's death was awkward but manageable. Derek and I barely spoke, just nodded to each other in passing. I was grieving and threw myself into work, taking extra projects to keep busy. Then last week, Derek dropped a bomb that changed everything. He casually mentioned over breakfast that his ex-girlfriend Olivia, 38F, was moving in with us. Just like that, no discussion, no asking my opinion. When I objected, he said she'd lost her job and needed a place to stay. He'd already promised her she could come, and he wasn't going to go back on his word. I was furious. This was my mom's apartment, now legally mine, and he hadn't even bothered to consult me before inviting someone to live here. I called Mom's friend Sarah, who'd worked with her at the coffee shop, hoping she might have some advice. What she told me made my blood boil. Apparently, Derek and Olivia had been seeing each other long before Mom got sick. Sarah had seen them together multiple times at restaurants across town, looking very cozy. She'd wanted to tell Mom but couldn't prove anything, and Mom was already dealing with so much. This explained all his late work meetings and absences during Mom's illness. I confronted Derek about this, but he completely denied everything. According to him, he and Olivia only reconnected recently when they ran into each other at a real estate convention. He accused me of trying to soil Mom's memory by making up stories about him. Despite my protests, Olivia moved in yesterday. She's taken over the guest room and is acting like she owns the place. Within hours of arriving, she started reorganizing things, moving Mom's photos from the living room because they didn't match the aesthetic. When I found Mom's favorite vase stuffed in a cabinet, Olivia claimed she was just trying to update the space. The atmosphere is suffocating now. Olivia practically hangs on Derek whenever I'm around, making it obvious they're more than just friends. She's been going through mom's things when she thinks I'm not looking, even trying on her jewelry. When I confronted her, she played innocent and Derek backed her up, saying I was being paranoid and hostile. Last night, I couldn't sleep and went to get water from the kitchen. I overheard them in the living room, discussing how to legally get me out of the apartment. Olivia suggested they could build a case against me for harassment, and Derek agreed it might work. They talked about gathering evidence of me being threatening towards Olivia. I started recording all our interactions after that conversation. I've also been keeping a detailed log of everything they do. This morning, I noticed some of Mom's expensive paintings were from the study. When I asked about them, Derek claimed Mom had promised them to him. I feel lost and angry. This was my mom's home, filled with her memories, and these people are trying to push me out and erase her presence. I don't want to break my promise to Mom about letting Derek stay, but I can't live like this either. Every day I find more of Mom's things moved, hidden, or disappeared. I'm thinking of getting legal advice but wanted to know if I'm overreacting. The apartment is legally mine, I have all the paperwork. But am I wrong for wanting to evict Derek after promising Mom I'd let him stay? Should I just move out and rent the apartment to them? Or should I stand my ground? Update 1. First, thank you everyone for your advice and support on my last post. Things have gotten significantly worse, but I've finally found help from someone I least expected, my Aunt Aubrey, 43F, my mom's sister. I was initially hesitant to contact Aubrey because of her complicated history with Mom. They had a major falling out when Mom married Derek. Aubrey never trusted him and tried to warn Mom about his sketchy behavior and questionable past. She'd noticed how he always had expensive things despite claiming business was slow, and how his stories about his past never quite added up. But Mom was in love and accused Aubrey of trying to ruin her happiness. They stopped speaking to each other, and Aubrey wasn't even at the wedding. Over the past 2 weeks, living with Derek and Olivia became unbearable. They started with small things at first, playing loud music late at night, especially near my room, leaving dishes in the sink for days, and accidentally breaking things that belonged to Mom. But then it escalated. Olivia began inviting her friends over for parties almost every night. They'd gather in the living room, drinking and being loud until early morning. When I asked them to keep it down because I had work the next day, Derek threatened to call the cops on me for harassment. He claimed I was creating a hostile environment and making Olivia feel unsafe in her home. I also noticed my things starting to disappear. First, it was small stuff, my laptop charger, some cables, my spare house key. Then important documents began vanishing from my room, bank statements, property papers, even Mom's will. When I confronted them, Olivia suggested I was misplacing things due to grief and Derek backed her up, saying maybe I needed professional help. The final straw came when I found them in Mom's bedroom, which I'd specifically asked them not to enter, going through her jewelry box. Olivia was trying on Mom's wedding ring, the one she'd worn until the day she died. When I told them to put it back, Derek claimed Mom had promised the jewelry to Olivia before she died. I knew this was a lie because Mom had explicitly told me she wanted her jewelry to go to her future grandchildren. Following advice from my previous post, I finally called Aubrey. I was terrified she'd refuse to talk to me after all these years, but she picked up on the first ring. The moment I said who I was, she burst into tears. She'd found out about Mom's death through mutual friends but wasn't sure if she'd be welcome at the funeral. When I told her everything that had been happening, Aubrey went quiet for a long time. Then she revealed something that made my stomach turn. She'd hired a private investigator last year to look into Derek's activities. She'd noticed him around town with different women while Mom was sick, but couldn't prove anything. The PI had collected extensive evidence of Derek's affairs, including his relationship with Olivia. There were photos of them together at hotels, restaurants, even on weekend trips, all while Mom was undergoing chemotherapy. The PI also uncovered evidence that Derek had been stealing money from Mom during her illness. Remember how he'd sometimes help with medical bills? Turns out he'd convinced Mom to add him as a joint holder on her savings account in case of emergencies. He'd been systematically transferring money from this account to another one. Aubrey had all the bank statements showing transfers totaling almost $50,000 to an unknown account. She never showed any of this to Mom because she was already so sick, and Aubrey didn't want her last days to be filled with heartbreak. But she kept all the evidence, hoping it might help someone someday. I spent hours on the phone with Aubrey, both of us crying and sharing memories of Mom. She told me how much she regretted not trying harder to maintain contact with Mom, how she'd drive by our house sometimes just to make sure everything was okay. She'd even sent birthday cards to Mom every year, though Mom never responded. Aubrey immediately connected me with her lawyer, who specializes in estate fraud. We're now building a case against Derek, documenting both the financial fraud and the ongoing harassment. The lawyer advised us to gather as much evidence as possible before making any moves. Aubrey drove 6 hours to stay at a nearby hotel so she could help. She hired professionals to install hidden security cameras in my room and the common areas, with the lawyer's approval. We needed to protect myself in case they tried to frame me for something, which the lawyer warned might happen given their behavior. The cameras have already caught Olivia going through my room when I'm at work, though I've started keeping anything important in a safety deposit box. They also recorded Derek and Olivia discussing plans to find something they could use against me to force me out. Yesterday, Olivia accidentally spilled coffee all over Mom's favorite armchair, the one thing I specifically asked them not to touch. The upholstery is probably ruined. I had to stand there and watch her make a show of trying to clean it while Derek told me these things happen and I needed to let go of old furniture. The lawyer advised me to keep acting normal while we prepare our case. It's incredibly hard watching them slowly destroy Mom's home and memory, but I know we need to be smart about this. Aubrey is helping me document everything and photograph any damage they cause. I'll update again when we make our move. For now, I'm just trying to stay calm and focused. Having Aubrey back in my life feels like having a piece of Mom back. Thank you all for encouraging me to reach out to her. I don't know what I would have done without her help. Update 2. Everything exploded last night. Derek and Olivia tried to frame me for assault, but their plan backfired spectacularly thanks to the security cameras Aubrey installed. I was in my room working late when I heard screaming from the living room. My heart started racing because I knew something was wrong. When I ran out, I found Olivia on the floor, crying hysterically with her clothes deliberately messed up. Derek was already filming everything on his phone, yelling about how he'd caught me in the act of attacking her. Olivia was putting on quite a performance, sobbing about how I'd suddenly turned violent and tried to force myself on her. Derek kept filming while calling 911, describing how he'd heard her screams and caught me in the act. He was speaking in this weird, rehearsed way, like he was reading from a script. What they didn't know was that we had installed high-definition cameras in the living room that caught everything. The footage showed Olivia and Derek planning the whole thing 30 minutes earlier. She'd practiced falling, messed up her own clothes, and they'd even discussed what they would tell the police. They chose that specific time because they knew I usually worked late in my room with headphones on. Aubrey was watching the security feed from her hotel room nearby. The moment she saw what was happening, she called the police and rushed over with copies of the footage. She also called our lawyer, who immediately started driving to the apartment. When the police arrived, Olivia was still playing the victim role, complete with trembling hands and tears. Derek was aggressively demanding they arrest me immediately. The officers separated everyone and took our statements individually. I was terrified because false assault allegations can ruin someone's life, but I knew we had proof. Then Aubrey showed up with her laptop containing the security footage. The officers watched as Olivia and Derek meticulously planned their scheme. The footage showed them discussing how this would finally get me out of the apartment, with Derek assuring Olivia that assault allegations would force me to leave immediately. Their faces when they realized they'd been caught on camera were priceless. Olivia's tears dried up instantly. She tried claiming the video was fake, but the footage had clear timestamps and was part of a continuous feed. It showed them planning, practicing, and executing their scheme. The police arrested both of them for filing a false report and attempting to frame me. While they were being processed, our lawyer arrived with a stack of papers. He served them with immediate eviction notices and a restraining order. We also filed charges for the financial fraud we discovered, the missing $50,000 that Derek had stolen from Mom's account during her illness. The investigation revealed that the money had been transferred to Olivia's personal account in small amounts over several months. They'd been planning this for a long time, even while Mom was still alive. Our lawyer found bank records showing Derek had been moving money to Olivia since before Mom's diagnosis. They were released on bail but aren't allowed anywhere near the apartment. We hired a moving company to pack their things under supervision. I didn't want them claiming I'd stolen or damaged anything. Everything will be sent to a storage unit, and they can collect it once they provide a forwarding address to our lawyer. The lawyer confirmed they have no legal right to stay here. The apartment is solely in my name, and their attempt to frame me for a serious crime nullifies any previous arrangements. Even my promise to Mom about letting Derek stay doesn't hold up legally, especially given his criminal behavior. The police are taking this very seriously. Apparently, this isn't the first time Olivia has tried something like this. They found records of similar allegations she'd made against 2 previous boyfriends, though those cases were dropped for lack of evidence. We got lucky with the cameras. It feels surreal how quickly everything happened. Just yesterday morning I was tiptoeing around my own home, and now they're both gone. The apartment feels emptier but also cleaner somehow, like a toxic presence has been removed. Aubrey is staying with me for a few days to make sure they don't try anything else. We've changed all the locks and installed additional security cameras. The lawyer thinks they might try to retaliate, so we're being extra careful. I'll update again once the legal proceedings are settled. Right now, I'm just trying to process everything that happened. It's hard to believe they would go this far just to get me out of Mom's apartment. I keep thinking about how differently this could have ended if we hadn't installed those cameras. Update 3. It's been 3 months since everything went down, and I finally feel ready to share the final update on this situation. A lot has happened, and life has taken some unexpected turns. Derek and Olivia both ended up pleading guilty to filing a false police report. Their lawyer advised them to take a plea deal to avoid a trial, especially since we had clear video evidence of them planning the whole thing. They're both on probation for 2 years and had to pay significant fines. More importantly, they had to pay back every cent of the money they stole from Mom's account, with interest. The district attorney was particularly interested in Olivia's history of false allegations. They found 2 previous cases where she'd accused ex-boyfriends of assault, though those cases were dropped due to lack of evidence. She's now being investigated for those incidents as well, and one of her previous victims has reached out to thank me for exposing her pattern. The apartment feels like home again. Aubrey stayed with me for several weeks after everything happened, helping me restore the place to how Mom had it. We found boxes of Mom's things that Olivia had hidden in the storage room, photo albums, journals, and even her collection of vintage brooches that we thought were lost forever. Reading through Mom's journals was emotional but healing. She wrote about how much she loved both of us and how she wished we could all be together again. Some interesting developments came from the investigation into Derek's finances. The police discovered he'd been running small-scale real estate scams for years, taking deposits for properties he didn't actually have the right to sell. Several of his former clients have now filed complaints, and he's likely to lose his real estate license. Derek and Olivia's relationship imploded spectacularly after everything fell apart. She blamed him for not destroying the security footage before calling the police, and he blamed her for not being a convincing enough victim. Last I heard, he's living in a budget motel on the outskirts of town, trying to convince his old friends that he's the real victim in all this. Nobody's buying it, especially after the local news ran a story about the false assault allegations. Olivia apparently moved back in with her parents in another state. She tried to contact me once through social media, claiming she was forced into the scheme by Derek and wanted to apologize. I blocked her immediately and forwarded the message to my lawyer, since it violated the restraining order. The best part of this whole ordeal has been rebuilding my relationship with Aubrey. We both regret the years lost to Derek's manipulation, but we're making up for lost time. She's moved to a nearby apartment and we have dinner together several times a week. Going through Mom's things together has helped us both heal and process our grief. The apartment is peaceful now. I kept Mom's favorite armchair, we managed to restore it after Olivia's coffee incident. Sometimes I sit in it and feel like Mom's still here, watching over us. Aubrey says she can feel Mom's presence too, especially when we're cooking in the kitchen using Mom's old recipes. I've started therapy recently. Edit, I know I said I wouldn't need therapy, but so much happened, not because of Derek and Olivia, but to work through my grief about Mom and rebuild my relationship with Aubrey. It's helping me understand that none of what happened was my fault. This whole experience taught me a lot about standing up for myself and trusting my instincts. Mom always said everything happens for a reason. Maybe this horrible situation had to happen to bring Aubrey back into my life and show me who my real family is. Thank you, Reddit, for all your support through this journey. Special thanks to those who encouraged me to contact Aubrey, you literally changed my life.